My name is Elena. I grew up near 23rd and Hill Street area, Victory Park area, and I also grew up near Park Hill Street. Oh, in Dumanil, 28th and Dumanil.
Been asked to provide, I guess, a few remarks regarding the neighborhood I grew up in, which is the Newburgh community. And I call it a community because, in my heart, that's exactly what it is. And I feel as if it really made, uh, it really made me the person that I am today.
Well, as a child, I grew up in the Shawnee neighborhood, and I chose to move to Park Duval, where it's quiet. It's a quiet neighborhood. The neighbors keep to themselves, and it's centrally located between where I grew up in the Shawnee neighborhood, where my mom she still lives, and my job and church.
You may not know that I am actually fifth generation Portland, although my parents were in that generation that moved out. Sometime after the flood in the 50s, my mom married a Germantown guy and moved up. But I moved back. So you might be wondering, why would you do that? I raised 3 kids in Portland, and they are all doing well. I love the neighborhood.
I've told many people before, I'm a product of Louisville's West End. Actually, I was born in Paducah, Kentucky, but I moved to Louisville when I was 6 years old and I started school here. And it just so happened that when we moved to Louisville, we moved to the West End on 28th and Virginia Avenue. And there's just so much history that I was able to be a part of in terms of the West End and Louisville that I'm just really proud to have grown up there.
Newburgh that I grew up in is drastically different from the Newburgh of today. The Newburgh that in the mid 80s to early 90s was more of a vibrant community that I think has been systematically marginalized over the years. Now, that's not to say that it didn't have its challenges back then, because it did. But I would say, one of the main motivators in helping me navigate through challenges as being a young black male in a at-risk community was, really being able to lean on folks who you wouldn't think would serve as mentors, right? So we're not talking about people who traditionally would show up in schools or neighborhoods. We're just talking about neighborhood people. Maybe it was, and I'm not going to mention any names, but maybe it was a guy who had been incarcerated for a number of years, and he had come out of the penitentiary and helped a lot of us understand that, taking the right road was absolutely the best way to go versus taking the road that he took. And, or it was the neighborhood grandmother who wasn't our blood grandmother, but definitely acted as if she was a grandmother to all the kids in the neighborhood, that in many instances served as a surrogate parent to ours.
My mother was a strong advocate for education. Growing up, she was like my rock. She was my backbone, and she was the reason, why I made it through high school, and I'm currently enrolled in college, because she taught the importance of education and how education, opens the doors for new opportunities. And I'm just really thankful for her, because even though, when you grow up in those areas, you are surrounded by different types of people. You just have different things going on in your neighborhood. And she taught me to not allow external forces, affect our home internally.
It has a reputation for being a really tight neighborhood, and that's well deserved, and it has served it's very well, because when you know that nearly half of the population, just in the last couple years, the data still shows, like more than 40% are poverty level. Median income is $23,000 a household. So you're raising a family on a very low income. And people know how to manage that and make it stretch. And where they don't, it falls into a lot of desperation. So that's where you get domestic violence, child abuse, and all those other kinds of poverty-centered issues. But because it has another 50% that are more stable income, extended family, close neighbors, longtime friends, people really help each other. There are collections to be sure that people have a decent burial. There are big community meals where you just distribute all the food afterwards. There are all kinds of traditions that just help people take care of each other. And children in the traditional neighborhood are really watched out for neighbor to neighbor.
Growing up in Louisville's West End, athletics was really prominent, and that's really a lot of why I was able to, go on and play basketball at higher levels, because there was so much competition. And on an academic basis, the school I went to, Parkland Junior High, we had some really good students who had some great careers.
The neighbors are, friendly. The neighborhood is well kept, well maintained. I've lived in Park Duval for 2 years. My son, he frequents the community center, which is a walking distance from our home. There's no corner stores, so there's really, there's no troubles. So, and I really appreciate that about that neighborhood. And the people are great, and it's a great place to raise a family.
My experiences brought me to believe that in many cases, people make the choices that they have. And in so many cases that people are not empowered to make decisions, because the power is not in the choice, but in the decision. So I believe one of our main focuses here at Metro United Way is to ensure that people in some of the most marginalized communities in Louisville have a decision to make instead of a choice to make.
But I'm just really thankful, for my mother, because because of her, I was able to I was able to make it through my neighborhood, make it out of negativity. Because I had friends who wasn't really fortunate. They succumbed to the negative forces that surrounded us in our neighborhood. And just looking back, that's why I think it's so important to give back. That's why I love to volunteer and help people, because everyone doesn't have people helping them. Everyone doesn't have a great home. So I think it's important for us to reach back and help others every chance that we get, because you never know, you could be that one light to that one person.